All right, everyone. Welcome to another special edition episode of the Nerds Be Heard podcast. Charlie and I this week have the distinct pleasure of recording on a internationally renowned holiday known as May the 4th. May the 4th be with you, Charlie.
And also with you.
I just want to kick this off with for all our listeners, we do have some breaking news. And the breaking news is that it's true. All of it. The Force, the Jedi. It's true.
That's a great Han Solo quote there, Matthew.
Well, I'm glad you brought up Han Solo because if we're going to talk about Star Wars, we ought to talk about what we love so much about Star Wars. So on this May the 4th, I think it's great if you and I just dive into our backgrounds and how we got introduced to the magical universe that George Lucas created, that is Star Wars. And, I want to ask you first, but Han Solo plays a huge role in terms of my love for Star Wars. But what brought you into the Star Wars fold? What made you a Star Wars fan?
Yeah, so I mean, growing up, I was always, into movies and TV and whatnot. Also was really into sports, but me and my dad used to always just sit down and watch movies. And I guess when I became of certain age, he thought that, I could watch Star Wars. He introduced it to me back in the day when you'd get the good old VHSs, whether it was from Blockbuster or we own them. And he showed me the original trilogy and I just kind of fell in love with it. I've been a huge fan ever since. It's been a big part of my life. I would watch them over and over. We we're too young to have gotten to experience the originals in the movie theater, but then I remember when the prequel trilogy came out. I mean, I was still a huge Star Wars fan at that point. I think I was 12 years old when the Phantom Menace came out. I was lucky enough. My dad happened to work in publishing and one of his clients was Lucasfilm. And I got to go to one of the world premieres of the Phantom Menace, which was
cool.
Really awesome. I have a picture with Jake Lloyd. I met, a bunch of the cast and, I'm someone who loves the prequels, but I also grew up on them as well. I remember then I had a birthday party with all my friends to go see that movie in the movie theaters. And Star Wars is always, to me, it's the ultimate form of entertainment. It is funny. It, has action. It has the mythology. You can look up to these characters and, you want to be them. I remember, I collected all the toys. I'd have the lightsabers. I'd be fighting with whether it was my friends or my dad. It was I just loved it. And to this day, I mean, I still collect Star Wars stuff. So, and it's a movie franchise that's really just stood the test of time, in my opinion. I mean, they still really hold up. I know, you see the new ones and, the technology's come a long way, but there's just something about the originals. You could show them to a kid today and they're going to fall in love with them. And I think that's one thing that's really awesome about it.
Yeah.
How about you, Matt?
Well, my first endeavor into the Star Wars universe was actually one that I'm always going to be fond of. My mother introduced me to Star Wars. And she started me out on the original A New Hope. And I was bored out of my mind. I'm a kid and I'm bored. And I wasn't immediately enthralled. But she then had me watch Empire, which is now a top 10 movie of all time for me. And what I think ended up happening, I was super, super young, but I think we had watched it right at the end battle with Luke and Darth Vader. So the lightsaber duel, where Luke loses his hand, and it's just an epic sequence, and that got me hooked because I was like, "What are these laser swords? Who are these people? This is incredible!" And that's when I became completely hooked, and I said, I got to go watch all of these. And then I rewatched A New Hope and did the trilogy from beginning to end. And I watched them all like 100 times. You couldn't get me to stop. Then I got all my neighbors interested in it, all like my neighborhood friends. And next thing you know, we're trying to buy the Return of the Jedi, Luke Skywalker green lightsaber, which was like off the shelves. You could not get it in any store. It was selling out everywhere because they had they released it. It was crazy because I guess the VHSs were becoming popular again. And they released the green lightsaber in stores and they sold out almost immediately. And my neighbor had his mother found one in New Jersey. So I was living in Long Island, New York, and she was looking everywhere because we were so obsessed with Star Wars. And she found like the last two in some random town in Jersey, and they drove. His mother drove on behalf of all the parents in the neighborhood, went and got the lightsabers, brought them back, and we had them. And it was like the best day of my childhood life. I'll never forget showing up in the box. It was a clear box. You could kind of see the lightsaber, and it, I had half the green thing popping out. And it was just like the best day of my life. So I owe my whole Star Wars fandom to my mother, who isn't the biggest nerd. It doesn't really like sci-fi, but loved those movies. Remembered, going in high school to see it in theaters, and just had recalled it being such a magical theater going experience. It was unlike anything they had ever seen before. The technology was transcendent, and it was just something that changed her life. So she brought it to me, and that was it. I mean, I was obsessed with the Jedi, and that to this day, what keeps me coming back to the Star Wars universe. You're a lot more enthralled in the entire world, and you are a mega Star Wars fan. I'm a huge Jedi fan, and I haven't always ventured down to the other paths that don't go around that normal Jedi storyline. But the interesting oxymoron with that is that my favorite character in other than Obi-Wan Kenobi was Han Solo. And thus began my absolute obsession and idolization of Harrison Ford. I remember asking my mom, who's that guy? He's so cool. I want to be just like him. And then she introduced me to Indiana Jones almost immediately afterwards. So I became like a George Lucas junkie and a Harrison Ford junkie. He's one of my favorite people to ever walk this planet. And that's how it all kind of unfolded, and my love affair unfolded. Now, contrary to you and not being able to see it in theaters, I don't know if you remember this, but when we were super, super young, they did a remastered re-release in theaters with unreleased footage,
which I totally saw.
Yeah, and it had a deleted scene with like Jabba the Hutt in A New Hope, actually, and he was like interacting with Harrison Ford's character Han Solo, and all that was new footage. And so back then, so for all of you young listeners that have no idea what it's like to wait for things to come to the theaters, wait for the VHS afterwards, or even be aware of movie news. There was no internet. There was no, direct
no, it's crazy to think that.
And you know how I found out about it? I was just watching like Power Rangers one day or something.
Yeah, like a commercial.
Right. And a commercial came up and it showed all this like new scenes, and I got grounded because my nerd self was so excited. I didn't know how to contain my excitement. I ran up the stairs and I went, Jesus Christ. and I took the Lord's name in vain. And my mom was so mad, and she sent me to my room. I was punished for days. And then she ultimately felt bad, but I was just so unbelievably excited to see this trailer and see that the movies are being re-released, and I could see it on the big screen. I lost control, and that's my favorite memory because that was that's pretty much how I still am when I see a trailer for like any movie that looks exciting, or new Star Wars movie. I can't contain my excitement, and it just releases.
No,
So
I totally can relate because I feel the exact same way. And that was like a big ordeal when those got re-released as the special editions. Because yeah, people like us who weren't around when they first came out, we got to experience them in the movie theater. And I know that's really when the merchandise start to really ramp up. Like that was a resurgence for Star Wars. And George always is looked at, that guy is all about making as much money as possible. And he knew that, I mean, to this day, he'll say Star Wars is for children. So he gets a little crazy when all the, man childs tell him he's wrong. But he knew he could just merchandise the hell out of it. And, the toys were becoming popular again, even though these movies were like, they were old at that point. And that's a testament again to this franchise. People are always interested, even in these characters that were made back in the 70s. It's amazing. But speaking of the special editions, that was another thing that, George is really ahead of his time. He's one of the most brilliant filmmakers ever. And he, I know in the beginning, he'll say, he started in the middle of this, or at that point, not the beginning of his saga. So once the Empire Strikes Back came out, Star Wars ultimately got the title A New Hope, which was then episode 4. It was just a totally, new way of filmmaking. And he knew the reason he wanted to do that was because the stuff he really wanted to show in the prequels, the technology wasn't necessarily there. Right. So that's why he went back and then added stuff into his original trilogy of things that he just couldn't make then, which I know it doesn't bother me because I'm such a George Lucas sweaty. I'm kind of like, this was his vision. But I know there's a lot of people out there who are like, why did you change that? Like, why did you add this, corny stuff? Like you ruined the masterpiece. And I know a lot of people really want Disney to release the original trilogy, like as its purest form when they were first made. I don't think that's ever going to happen. I've read rumors that George actually, when he sold Star Wars, it was in the contract that they could never do that. And I believe that to be true because Disney probably would have done it already because they'd make a ton of money. So what is your feeling towards that? Did that bother you that he would constantly go back and change stuff?
No, George Lucas can do no wrong as far as I'm concerned. And in many ways, I feel like his vision and what he's created, the soul has been sucked out from it. And I just wish they would listen to him a little bit more. Again, you and I have talked about how the love of the prequels there's like this newfound love for it where people used to hate on it. And I think that George Lucas to the same testament where, the first movies came out in the late 70s and then it had a resurgence in the 90s. It means that he's a storyteller that transcends generations, and sometimes it's not fully appreciated for generations later. And we're seeing the same thing again with the prequels. Like the prequels are great movies. Okay, get Jar Jar Binks and remove him, and then or turn him into a Sith and justify his existence. But
weirdly enough, George will tell you that's one of his favorite characters.
Right, yeah.
Which is funny.
And you know what? If you remember watching them when we were kids, it was a comedic. You didn't really hate Jar Jar Binks
didn't
the way
bother
adults
me.
did, right?
No.
You actually thought this guy's pretty funny, and it is what it is. And sacrilege, the nerds be heard. We're saying Jar Jar Binks wasn't all that bad when we were kids. Now you go back and rewatch it, you're like, oh, I could do without it. But it's like, come on. This is George's world. He can do whatever he wants with it. If he wants to go back and make edits afterwards, because the best thing he ever did was to truly wait to make the prequels until the technology was available. Because then, if he didn't, we would have never had the duel of the fates between Darth Vader or I guess he was still Anakin at the time, turning into Darth Vader, and Obi-Wan Kenobi, which to this day is the best lightsaber duel and battle in Star Wars cinematic history. So all power to George Lucas.
I mean, I agree. That's Revenge of the Sith is one of my favorite movies of all time. Once again, not have to go down the whole who likes the prequels, who doesn't. Me and you both like them, which that's why we're real Star Wars fans, because quite frankly, then moving on to the sequels, just to keep talking about George Lucas, I personally like the sequel trilogy, but the more I, hear about how big of a mess that was behind the scenes, I get really upset. I mean, they've come out and say that, George had treatments for the three movies, and, Disney, Bob Iger was kind of like, yeah, we're going to go our own way, which I understand because, George sold the company to Disney for a lot of money, and, they had every right to do that. I think part of the issue was, I know we've talked about this before, and the fact that I'm going to say this would blow anyone's mind who has known me for a while. Partially to blame is JJ Abrams. I used to think he was like a god. And the more I've heard, he hates the prequels. Like he is he's a prime example. Like he grew up when Star Wars was the thing, and that those movies are why he, got into filmmaking and who he is today. And a lot of creators around his, generation, they look at the original trilogy and they don't like the prequels. They're the people that ruined Star Wars, those movies. So he was just like, dude, the last movies that George put out, people hated. Like, do you really want to do that again? Do you really want to listen to what this guy has to say? I can reboot this franchise. He definitely probably sold them on. He did that for Star Trek. He did it for Mission Impossible. He's kind of known as the reboot guy.
Yeah.
And I think back now, I mean, those movies all made over $1 billion. So financially, they're a huge success, but it definitely tore apart the fandom. And I think they made a mistake by not doing what George's treatments did. And what I think is going to happen is they're going to take some of those storylines, they're going to end up becoming somewhat narratives on Disney Plus shows.
Yeah, that'd be kind of cool. Did you ever read the Bob Iger book where
Yes.
he talks about that whole
Yes.
transaction? And yeah, it's pretty clear. Bob, I like Bob. I admire him as a CEO. But he's and he admits that he's not a creative talent the way visionaries are like George Lucas. But it was kind of clear that he had no intention of really honoring George Lucas's wishes from a story fulfillment perspective. Disney, they're their own powerhouse now, and they have their own vision. And I think he was thinking more grand scale, like the MCU, that they were going to do a repeat, and George Lucas would keep it limited. I think
It's sad.
I think
It's sad.
Yeah, they're batting 500. They got the MCU dialed in. They got some work to do on Star Wars, but it seems like they're doing the TV version of Star Wars well. So hopefully they stick with that, and then maybe share some of the screenwriters and directors, such as Jon Favreau, if they can have him do a trilogy movie. I think that would be awesome.
I think John is one of the futures, definitely, of Star Wars. And the other guy who, in my opinion, he's the king of it all, is Dave Filoni. I know you're not a big Star Wars animation guy, but he essentially is George Lucas's apprentice. They made the Clone Wars together. And he is also the co-creator with Jon Favreau of The Mandalorian. He created Ahsoka. So a lot of people are calling the Disney Plus shows the Filoni verse. He's the guy who's going to come and save what they let J.J. Abrams and Rian Johnson, quote unquote, ruin. Once again, I do enjoy the sequels, but I do understand where a lot of people are coming from. And
Rian Johnson gets too much hate, though. It should just be JJ that takes that heat.
Yeah, I agree. Rian Johnson's a brilliant filmmaker. The thing that they really messed up on was they didn't have an overarching plan, which, speaking of Marvel, that's what they do so well. What Kathleen, and then, not to jump all over the place, but Kathleen Kennedy, who she is, the president of Lucasfilm, she's ironically was handpicked by George. I mean, she's one of the greatest producers of all time. I go back and kind of, she's not Kevin Feige, but she's a great producer. I know Matt's looking at me. But I get upset with her because I feel like she kind of threw George under the bus. Like, I feel like she could have stuck up for him a little bit more. It's just kind of insane. Like, Bob, he didn't really have a relationship with Bob. Like, they kind of made one throughout, talking about Star Wars through the transaction, but he's been with Kathleen forever. I mean, she was a producer of the Indiana Jones movies. I mean, one of his best friends. And I think now she's picking up the pieces and kind of letting, like I said, Dave Filoni kind of take charge, because that's what the fans want. I mean, the Clone Wars is one of the greatest pieces of Star Wars ever made. Anyone who thinks it's just for kids is completely wrong. It actually makes the prequels extremely better. It really fleshes out a ton of the characters, adds new characters, and a lot of people who haven't seen that, not that you're going to get lost with the Mandalorian and Ahsoka going forward, but the enjoyment factor of them is that much better if you've seen the show. So I think Star Wars is going in the right direction now, and Dave Filoni is really gonna, make it what it used to be, because he knows George taught him everything he knows. As cliche as that sounds, like, he is as close to will ever get to George Lucas making Star Wars.
There's only two people that can save Star Wars at this point.
Me
and
and
that's
you.
Hayden Christensen. It's us too, but it's Hayden Christensen and Ewan McGregor. I think I've never been more hyped for a TV show, I think, than the Obi-Wan series. I have this deep-rooted respect and love for the character Obi-Wan Kenobi. So much, it's the one character that I understand their like overall storyline from not just the cinematic universe, but all of the prequel novels and things that they did in his background. I read like the whole series of adolescent Obi-Wan. And I love the character. I love the way he developed. He was very similar to Anakin in many ways, where he was a troubled youth and he had struggles with potential emotional anger and fear and things that drive the dark side. And Qui-Gon actually originally their relationship was a little bit frictional. So I just want to see that now. What these TV shows have been able to do is really kind of tie loose ends and finalize the character arcs, like we covered in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I think we're going to see so many loose ends get closed, where Obi-Wan's story will be fulfilled. I personally think we're going to see Qui-Gon. And I think that'll be one of the biggest surprises in the series, while they learn how to basically master the art of being immortal and being a Force ghost. I think that storyline still needs to be fulfilled at the end of Revenge of the Sith. That's what Yoda was telling Obi-Wan was, hey, you got to go visit your old master. And he's going to teach you everything that you still have yet to learn about the Force. And so that should be really exciting. Uniting Hayden and Ewan again is going to be like my childhood dreams coming true. We're going to see probably justice for Hayden Christensen, who's gotten way too much heat and hate. I think we're going to see a badass Hayden Christensen in the Vader suit, and see that character really go from. I think they make reference in the original trilogy, episode 4 through 6, about how Anakin was this great Jedi Knight and this great man, and then he had like this internal battle before he became Vader. And they didn't have enough time in Revenge of the Sith to really explore that fully. And I think what the Obi-Wan series is probably going to show is that full transformation into Darth Vader. I think there'll still be a little bit of Anakin left. I think they're going to explore that a bit. He's going to be a tortured soul. And I think maybe one of my favorite, let's call it plot holes in A New Hope was, they made a meme. I don't know if you've seen it, when Obi-Wan hands Luke the lightsaber and he's like, "It was your father's. He wanted you to have it." And then they zoom back in on the duel of the fates and he's like, "I hate you. Please give my lightsaber to my son Luke when he turns 18," or something like that. And it was just like,
That is amazing.
It's stuff like that.
No, I mean, to go off of that, I mean, you're totally right. Like, that's gonna be an amazing opportunity with this show. Is they're definitely gonna flesh out like stuff like that. And I totally agree with you that there's still Anakin left within him. They're gonna show some of his struggle, because that is something that they definitely, didn't have enough time to do in the movies. And it's fleshed out a little bit in Clone Wars, but he still hasn't. Revenge of the Sith happens after the Clone Wars series, or in the final season. They're kind of happening, concurrently. But I do think that, and I also love your prediction. I totally agree about Qui-Gon Jinn. I also think that he is going to teach Obi-Wan how to become a Force ghost. That's also kind of foreshadowed a little bit in the Clone Wars animation show. But I mean, it just makes perfect sense. Because you've never seen that. And I think that would be really cool in live action it's such a big part of Star Wars. And it's like the ultimate goal as a Jedi is to become that powerful that you can do that. So I'm excited for that. I'm just excited too, to learn more a little bit just about Obi-Wan in general. Sorry, what were you going to say, Matt?
Well, yeah. And that whole journey between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope, and, it's a relatively short time span. I mean, how old was Luke Skywalker in A New Hope? 18?
I don't even think he's that old. Yeah. So he's like a teenager. Yeah.
Teenager, right? So not a lot of time has passed, but somehow I want them to figure out how to explain this, but like somehow people just completely forgot the Jedi exist and think it's some sort of myth, right? Like even Han Solo, right?
Yeah.
And they explained that a little bit in Solo, which I actually thought was an amazing spin-off as well, that I don't think gets enough credit as it should. And I came in hating on that movie, because I'm like, no one could do Han Solo better than Harrison Ford. Screw that. And then Ron Howard just made him honestly one of the best installments in the Star Wars franchise, in my opinion. But you don't really, I guess you don't really understand how people just kind of over a short window of time forgot that there were like thousands of Jedi roaming the earth.
They're all under the interpretation they've all been killed.
Yeah. Well, but even like Han Solo he just thought it was a bunch of mumbo jumbo.
No, that is definitely like you're right, some sort of a plot hole where why did everyone forget about them?
And maybe they'll talk about, maybe only certain parts of the galaxy far, far away were aware of the existence of the Jedi. And and when you're in an empire, they can bring in a lot of, Disney does this really well. You bring in a lot of like what happens in the real world into, that pretend world, and, filtered content to, from a media perspective and from like teachings and writings, maybe, people weren't educated on what was really going down, because Emperor Palpatine controlled the narrative. So they could make it really real and grounded, which would be really interesting. Since we talked about Han Solo a bit, I have one question for you that I feel like we really need the answer to. Did he shoot first?
Yes, he shot first, but George says no.
George says no.
Yes, that's like where that whole came from, because when he re-edited the movies, he doesn't shoot him first.
Yeah.
They kind of shoot at the same time. So because in his mind, Han Solo is like not someone who would just like kill someone in cold blood like that for no reason.
And in my eyes, he absolutely is.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, yes,
He's like, F you, I shot first.
yes,
So
exactly.
what?
One of the greatest Star Wars debates, but he definitely shot first, in my opinion.
We agree. We're agreeing too much on this podcast because we usually disagree, but I agree. I
Yeah.
agree that he shot first, and you know what? It was justified. And you know, when you're hanging around these scum in the outer layers of the Star Wars galaxy, you're gonna have to shoot first every once in a while if you think about surviving. It's just a rough world, the Empire. So,
It is. Which is
um,
no, but speaking of Empire though, because the big new show that's coming out, that just came out today, The Bad Batch, that's actually going, one of the big parts of that show is going to, it happens right after Revenge of the Sith. So it's gonna be about the creation of the Empire. So we may learn a few fun things in that, because they're giving a timeline that hasn't really been explored. So I'm really excited about that.
did you watch it?
Yeah, it was really good.
Okay, I'm watching tomorrow, so I will give you my feedback once I watch it.
Okay, great. I'm excited for you to watch it.
Yeah. So, who's your favorite character in the whole Star Wars universe? You
Yeah,
get two. You
okay, I
get two.
get
You
two.
get your favorite mainstream, and then your favorite underappreciated character.
Yeah, that's always really hard. I would say my favorite mainstream character is Yoda. I just
Great answer.
I loved that character. I really liked him when I was young. And then it was really cool to see a side of him. When you see Empire Strikes Back and going to that movie the first time, I mean, no one could really have this feeling today. But I loved when Luke goes to Dagobah and he finds this just like crazy weird creature, and then ultimately he learns that is Master Yoda, and that you shouldn't judge a character just by the way they look on their outside. And I just loved how he kind of was the most badass Jedi.
Yeah.
And then getting to see that in the prequels, just how he ran that council. I've just always I loved that character.
Yeah.
But I mean, I love Darth Vader as well. Star Wars has always given me, Star Wars like the one series where like the bad guys just are always really cool. But I know
Unless you're Kylo Ren, but yeah.
Kylo Ren is one of the best Star Wars characters in the new
Oh
new stuff.
no, he's
Yeah,
so bad.
we can get onto that after,
You mean
because I
mean
didn't.
emo?
Oh no, I
angsty teenage.
now we're disagreeing, because I knew it had to come. We'll talk about that later, because I need to give you my underrated character, because that's a hard question. Because I feel like no characters in Star Wars are actually underrated in a weird way. I'm gonna have to get back to you on that one. What do you tell me your two, and I'll think about it.
Well, Obi-Wan Kenobi's definitely
Yep.
my favorite. And well, it's a cross between Obi-Wan and Han Solo, but I don't know if it's Han Solo as much as it's Harrison Ford, and just my admiration for that human being. Underrated. I I'll go with something that you're going to be surprised with, but it's because I feel like they should have given him more and they didn't. But Poe.
That's a good answer. I'm surprised you're going with the sequel trilogy. I was keeping it more with the original, but that makes it easier then for me. I think the most underrated character who really got the shaft, who I thought was going to become my favorite character, is Finn.
Yeah.
In the sequel trilogy. They totally did him dirty. And I
They
mean,
did
John
both those
Boyega,
characters dirty.
yeah, they did. And John Boyega has, flat out come out and said how much they screwed him. And that really, like, in the beginning, I thought he was kind of overreacting or just kind of, bitter. And then, like, the more I read about it, and, like, I mean, I'm obsessive with watching interviews with actors, and I read, the interviews he did, and, like, yeah, they really screwed him over.
They
And
did.
that pissed me off because he should have been his whole story about being a stormtrooper who leaves the First Order to join the Resistance, ultimately becoming Force sensitive and could have been a Jedi. To me, that just sells a trilogy in itself. And the fact that they didn't explore that at all, like, talking about it now, makes me really, like, angry.
Yeah.
And I know at the end of the day, signing a big fat check, unfortunately, can probably get anyone to say yes. I think in the heat of the moment, John Boyega was like, I'm done with this shit. I'm never coming back, which is upsetting because he is a huge Star Wars, like, he is a nerd, like all of us. To be in that movie was like a dream come true,
Yeah.
which makes it even more upsetting. I just would love for him to come back for, like, a Disney Plus series, and you get to explore more about his character. I thought it was
That'd be
funny
kind of
because when
cool.
he was really pissed off at Disney, he's like, "You ain't gonna Disney Plus my ass," which I thought was funny. But
Yeah.
as actors are seeing now, that is actually the place to be.
Yeah.
They shouldn't look at feature films versus television series anymore. Like, I know we've talked about it before, but
It's the
Oscar,
golden age of television.
yeah, it really is, and it's no different. And, like, I know Oscar Isaacs had, he didn't really love his experience either, but he's going to be, Moon Knight in a Marvel series, so he must not hate the company that much.
Well, you mentioned them not having a dialed in plan. And honestly, I think the original intention was probably to make a much bigger deal out of those characters. And that's where it's like when you watch Force Awakens, you see this dynamic and you're just excited for what it's about to blossom into. And then it was like, oh, okay, like the world is really happy with a female Jedi, so we're going to go completely PC and just follow that completely. But they're also into this love story and this like tension between Kylo Ren, and it was just they went in the wrong freaking direction and they ignored other characters and tried to focus just on those two, and they made a really big mistake to do it, and they followed the wrong PC path. They could have stayed PC and done a lot with the multicultural cast that they did have, and they messed up. And honestly, it's frustrating because both those characters, Poe and Finn, deserved more. The actors deserved more, and that trilogy could have actually been something great. And instead, it was just something mediocre, and that was what was really upsetting for
No,
me as a fan.
I agree. And, talking about not having a plan, like, Poe's a perfect example. He, in The Force Awakens, when he crashes in the TIE fighter, he was supposed to die. And then JJ Abrams was like, oh, you know what? Like, I like this character. Let me, like, give him a new part. And then it's just kind of funny hearing that. And then he ultimately becomes a stable character within the entire trilogy, going back to not having a plan. And I was talking about this before, and then I kind of got sidetracked with Kathleen Kennedy. The one thing that she's really, I mean, she is definitely, steering that PC ship, but she also is, like, really into getting these, really hot directors, like hot commodities up and coming, Ryan Johnson being one of them. Um, and she kind of, from what, the legend has it that they say, is she kind of was like, okay, you guys can make your own movie. Like, you don't, like, Ryan, you make your movie, JJ, you make your movie. And Colin Trevorrow was actually supposed to make the last one until he ultimately, got fired, or they, left, they parted ways mutually.
Well, they probably
Um,
watched Jurassic World and then realized, okay, this guy sucks.
yeah, well, her husband's actually Frank Marshall, who is the producer of the Jurassic Park movies. So, talk about being awkward. He gets fired by his boss's wife,
Yeah,
which is kind of weird.
super awkward.
But yeah, I mean, I agree with you with the Jurassic World, but it's interesting because Colin Trevorrow's script has since leaked, and it was much better than Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah.
But it was primarily like a Leia movie. So I think he didn't really, I'm assuming he probably wanted to recast her. He hasn't come out and say that, or just, he's like, we can't come to agreement with creative decisions. And that's also why he walked away. But once again, that goes back to she never should have, like, maybe if J.J. Abrams was in charge of the trilogy, it would have been amazing. Even though I just, kind of threw shade at JJ, but if he was in charge of everything, it probably would have been a cohesive story. I mean, at the end of the day, excuse me, you can tell he totally ignored The Last Jedi and retconned certain things. And The Rise of Skywalker, which I did enjoy, was a direct sequel almost to The Force Awakens. He kind of made a few changes to make sure it kind of felt like a sequel to The Last Jedi. But if you're like a huge fan, you kind of know, like, yeah, he made a sequel to his own movie, which is unfortunate because I've heard JJ and Ryan do not like each other. And it kind of shows.
Yeah, it definitely shows, and that's the unfortunate tragedy that is that trilogy. But hopefully they come up with something to remedy it. Hopefully they bring in new branches. They move on from the Skywalker saga, but continue to explore the Star Wars universe in live action, in the many different ways that they have planned already, and in the new ways, hopefully. But question: if you could have any piece of technology that exists in the Star Wars universe, what would it be and why?
Any piece of technology that exists in the Star Wars universe.
Anything.
It'd be pretty sweet to have a ship that you could just go into hyperdrive and like automatically just go to anywhere, you kind of want to in a matter of seconds. I think that'd be pretty cool. I mean, I would also love a lightsaber, but
I thought you were going to say lightsaber, and that's the first thing that pops up in anyone's head.
Exactly. I tried to get a little more creative outside of the box.
Well, yeah, and for me, I thought about it, and it was like a really tough decision when I was thinking about it, because I'm like, well, I want this lightsaber, but like I'm not a freaking Jedi, even though my name is Jedi Meister. And so cool, I could like swing it around and like hurt myself, but in the grand scheme of things, if I could have the Millennium Falcon, and even if it is a piece of junk, hunk of junk, and fly wherever I wanted and go into hyperspace and travel, what better technology than that?
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, so we agree there as well. But there's like, there's things that, to dream up this technology in the 70s when George Lucas, came out with Star Wars. When you think about it, some of the technologies actually somewhat real, like when they did all like the holograms and stuff like that. I mean,
Yeah,
we can talk to each other on our cell phones and FaceTime. It's pretty similar. There are kind of holograms now too. Freaking Tupac did a concert last year. Who knew? You know what I mean? So some of that technology, and you think it's what's great about sci-fi is a lot of time sci-fi actually drives technology. People get inspired and they get these ideas from science fiction. And for the life of me, why can't they just make me a hoverboard? Like Back to the Future, I want a hoverboard. But no,
I agree. It's funny. I feel like that is something that should be real.
Right. And they've done magnets. They've done, I know I just went into a completely different universe,
No, it's
but
okay.
they've built a hoverboard skate park where it's completely magnetic, and then they have a board, but you have to stay on the skate park. And then they're saying, well, you could do like these rail systems and stuff like that, but there's no one ever going to sign up for that. So, but right now, the next big phase that people are thinking that's going to create hoverboards, by the way, is using drone technology. And then like a remote with a little bit of like a balancing stick, and there's actually some people building like jetpacks that do that already, which is kind of cool. So they're gonna convert it. We're probably another 5 years away from that, but I think I think it's coming. But it's interesting how these movies and other sci-fi movies, they do play a massive role in what ultimately gets released into society. And it's great re-exploring certain franchises like the Blade Runner franchise. We're going to go back to my boy Harrison Ford and what they thought 2020 would look like, and then what it actually was. It's pretty insane.
Right. Speaking of Harrison Ford, though, like, does it? I really wish like he actually likes Star Wars, because I like it bothers me that he, basically only signed up to be in Force Awakens to kind of do a favor to JJ, and JJ was like, "Yeah, I'll kill you." I know, like
That's all he wanted was to be killed
he
off.
asked George to kill him in the Return of the Jedi, and George was like, "No, man, we're not killing you. I need to sell toys."
Yeah.
And it's just, I would love to see. I mean, Han Solo at their core, Han Solo and Indiana Jones are a little bit similar type characters, and I would love to see more of Harrison, like old Harrison Ford, be a old Han Solo. Like he could have had his own series. Like I know he's dead. I'm just it's like upsetting that
Taylor.
it's upsetting that he just doesn't like he thinks this is just a bunch. Like, I know it's the most popular franchise he's in. He's probably just sick and tired. That's all anyone cares about. But I mean, it made him who he is.
I think it's a gimmick.
You think it's a full out gimmick?
Yeah. I think Harrison Ford is one of the funniest people to ever walk this planet, and people don't even know that he's
Oh
funny.
no, I agree with you on that, and I do think his whole persona is a gimmick. How he's like a grumpy old man, hates everything. But I genuinely do think he's just like, yeah, I don't want to deal with the Star Wars crap. That I think is real.
Well, so I don't. It's interesting because he plays these games. He's such a freaking sly devil. But you think about like he'll go on talk shows. Like, do you remember when what was it, Conan? It was either Conan or Jimmy Fallon, and he's in the crowd, and then all of a sudden he looks out in the crowd. He's like, "What are you doing here?" And it's freaking Chewbacca sitting in the stands. Like,
yes,
like he buys into it. He plays it. So he says it. He says he hates it, but then he does stuff like that, and I think it's part of his whole gimmick. And he's been interviewed on this where like he said like, all right, I'm killing all my characters off. He's like, so I asked to kill Han Solo. Next, I did Blade Runner. And he's like, but the one guy that's never going to die is Indiana Jones. So it's very clear that
that's his favorite.
His favorite character. And honestly, I prefer Indiana Jones to Han Solo just because Indiana Jones is just a freaking badass. But I think he appreciates Han Solo and what it did for his career. And I think it's just part of his whole, I'm too cool for school. And honestly, he's probably just afraid to say it. He's pissed he wasn't a Jedi. He's pissed he didn't get to wield a lightsaber.
You bring up a good point. He could be.
And he only got to wield a lightsaber once. And that's my favorite moment in the original trilogy. I don't think I brought that up earlier.
He cuts open the Wampa.
I remember when he did that, and I already like, this was after I had watched the Empire Strikes Back, just the lightsaber duel, and then went and rewatched everything, and then fell in love with Han Solo and Harrison Ford. And when he pulled out the lightsaber, I was like, oh my God, why can't he become a Jedi? Like, this guy's so cool. The only thing he doesn't have going for him is being able to fight with a lightsaber. And I bet you he's a little bitter. I'd be bitter. You tell me I'm in a Star Wars movie and I'm not gonna play with my laser sword. Come on now.
Did you like him being in the Rise of Skywalker, that little cameo?
Yes, because there is never too much Harrison Ford.
Okay.
It was forced, to be pun on words, it was forced. But it there's never such thing as too
Yeah,
much Harrison Ford.
I didn't mind it, but I really think JJ, once again, and it's probably because he hates the prequels, he missed a huge opportunity to have Hayden Christensen. He could have been in that scene. I
Yeah.
know it was like Leia was like force projecting, and obviously, unfortunately, Carrie Fisher had passed. It probably would have been her.
Yeah.
But I really hate that, for once again, someone who likes the sequels, the entire Star Wars saga is about Anakin Skywalker, and the fact that he was not in any of you got to hear his voice at the end, but the fact that he didn't show up at all when his grandson is like obsessed with him was a
Yeah.
huge mistake.
Yeah.
Especially, I feel like he could have came back and talked Ben back to the light side instead of Han Solo, instead of his mom and dad, because he went through the exact same struggle and could have told him there was a better way. And what better way than to complete his entire arc of
Yeah.
being able to, I don't know, it just, that really bothered me. And to this day, is huge missed opportunity. That's what's going to make even Hayden Christensen coming back and the Obi-Wan series that much better. Because as a
Yeah.
fan, I mean, did you expect him to be in the sequel trilogy, even for just a
Yes.
cameo? Okay.
Yes. I thought he would make a cameo. I thought it was a necessary cameo, and I thought that would be the Hayden Christensen like resurgence. I'm happy that it's going to be in the Obi-Wan series though, because similar to some of the arcs that we've talked about, like we talked about Steve Rogers in as Captain America and a fulfilling end. I do think Anakin's storyline ended really well. He ultimately did fulfill the prophecy, right?
Yep.
And to your point, though, could he have furthered that prophecy by being the last? You're right. You're right. It actually would have been better the way that, because they had to make new ones and capitalize. Then yeah, they should have ingrained them. But I
Yeah.
like the way that he was. It was like only his son could bring out the light again, and then he takes down the emperor once and for all. And how difficult that must have been after being consumed by the dark side for such a long period of time, and really losing his entire identity only to find it again through the love of his son. I thought that was a beautiful ending for
I
that
mean, it
character.
is. It's, you don't need, once again, like I love, the more Star Wars I get, the better, but that entire 6 movies is just perfect.
Right. It was, and honestly, yeah, well, this better than me, but like, he Anakin Skywalker doesn't even know Luke. He's never interacted with him, but it's his son, and that love is enough to conquer the dark side. That's a pretty beautiful story arc if I've ever seen one. So
No, I totally agree.
yeah, and then so I guess with it being May the 4th, um, do you have any predictions? Let's use the Force for a second here.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's become one with the midichlorians, or whatever the heck they want to call those things, midichlorians. All right.
Yep.
Predictions for the next few series. We can like any bold predictions on what you think might happen, so we can go back when we're reviewing these shows and or movies, because we're going to be doing this for decades, that you think is going to happen, that you want out there in the universe right now.
In talking about like all the series that are coming out on Disney
Yeah,
Plus.
could be Bad Batch, could be
Okay, I'll give you one.
Skywalker.
I think Luke Skywalker will be in the Obi-Wan series. They're definitely going to have a version of a young Luke Skywalker in that show.
Oh, young.
Doesn't need
You
to be a
think
big role, but I think he will be in the show.
you think he's going to get his own show?
I 100% think Luke Skywalker is going to get his own show. I think it's going to this is where Disney realized what they did was wrong, and they are going to give the fans exactly what they want, and they're going to come out the end being heroes again, which is all they want, and it'll make a ton of money. The way, spoilers if you haven't seen the finale of Mandalorian, but you shouldn't be listening to this if you haven't. Luke Skywalker is the Jedi who comes to save Grogu. I think, and it's perfect because that show takes place after a little bit after Return of the Jedi. And this is also where people who hated the Last Jedi could maybe come to like it a little bit better, that they flesh out Luke Skywalker that everyone wanted to see within a Disney Plus show.
Yeah.
You'll get the
That's-
badass Luke, you'll get the green lightsaber, it's just, I mean, I got chills when I saw that scene, and that's what I want. I want that show more than anything. And I also think you can then even flesh out his relationship with Ben Solo. There's a lot of opportunities there. And going back to the Sebastian Stan, I know we've talked about that before, and you were kind of just saying it. I would love to see him. I didn't mind. I know I've said this too before. I didn't mind the CGI like face that they did with Luke. I know you hated it. But I don't think I could watch an entire series with that unless the technology gets so much better.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind if they kind of like digitally altered Sebastian's face a little bit to kind of match Mark Hamill just a tiny bit. Like
It looks so much like him.
they do. But I mean, technology's come a long way where if you're putting that over someone who has a canny look to them already, you could get away with it. But yeah, I don't think they need to do it. And what better than Sebastian Stan? I mean, he's already in the company. They like him. His stock has only risen from the Falcon, the Winter Soldier. Lock that guy up, and he'd be great.
Perfect.
And like you said, I know some people were. I think you're the perfect person to like agree with this. As a huge Harrison Ford fan, loved Han Solo. How you said you enjoyed the Solo movie, but going into you were like, screw that, I don't want this. No one should ever play him. I think that's the way you got to look at it with the Luke Skywalker series. Someone else could do justice to the character. It just doesn't need to be Mark Hamill.
I truthfully think that Hamill screwed up the character in the sequel trilogy, and Sebastian Stan can save it. So
yeah, but that wasn't Mark Hamill's fault.
Yeah, agreed. But he also, I mean, he overacted. He's been out of the front of the screen game for a while.
He's a voice actor at the end of the day. I mean, it's more just he is Luke Skywalker. In my opinion, he could do no wrong, but like he's not winning Academy Awards.
Yeah, and maybe I'm letting his public persona influence my fanhood of him, but I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, okay. I
had to unfollow him. I unfollowed Luke Skywalker.
I still love Mark Hamill, so that doesn't bother me. But what is your opinion? Like, so would you be pumped for that show, or is there another show that you would be looking forward to more than that?
No, a Luke Skywalker show, I'd be first in line to be watching that. I think if they tried to do anything other than Sebastian Stan, whether they tried to do CGI or a different actor, I would probably riot. It's just too perfect, and you just don't mess these things up. You just do. If it works for you, if it's a silver platter, take the silver platter and make it yours. And Sebastian's he deserves it. I think he would love it. And I think he would have a lot of fun with that character. So I do think they're going to do that series. I think they've recognized some of the things that they need to clean up, and that's one of them. So I'm excited for that. Couldn't be more excited for the Obi-Wan series. I do think we made some predictions already. I do think Qui-Gon will be in the Obi-Wan. I think Yoda is going to be in the Obi-Wan. I think we're going to get a lot of, I think the predictions in the Star Wars verse. So Mandalorian proved that you can come up with some crazy ass fan theories and they're going to come true. unlike what's happened in the MCU show so far, where you're like, oh, this is going to happen, and then it doesn't, and you're like still satisfied, but also a little bit bummed. I think Star Wars, they're like, yeah, fan service, let's go do this. And they've done the fan service really freaking well. Even to the point where I wasn't seeing to be honest with you, I wasn't seeing all the greatness in the Mandalorian season one, and then season two comes along, and it's like, holy crap, this is a new level of
Joe, I mean,
awesome.
I'm upset. That may be my favorite thing that they've done since Disney has owned Star Wars. I personally think The Mandalorian is brilliant.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I,
season two, yeah.
well, I love season one as well. I mean, I thought season two was, brought, brought it to the next level. Um, but that to me is like what Star Wars is. That it allows you to move forward, but also give you that feel of the original. It's pretty grounded in reality as much as you could in a Star Wars universe. I love the whole bounty hunter aspect. I'm a huge fan of the whole Mandalorian lore that also is really fleshed out in the Clone Wars, which I know you haven't seen. But it goes again, like Jon Favreau, he was in the Clone Wars. So that's how he met Dave Filoni. So once again, I can't go back like those guys. They're my new I like film idols. Like I think they're really going to bring Star Wars to the next level. I
That's the
really just
Godfather right there, by the way. Jon Favreau. I mean, he's the reason the MCU exists.
dude, I
He-
know. I mean, he has replaced my 10-year ago obsession with JJ Abrams. Like Jon Favreau is it. Like he is a god. I want to be best friends with him. Like
yeah,
he's so cool.
he
He,
gets it.
he gets it. He's one of us. He takes his job very seriously though, and he knows he wants to give fans what they want, but he also knows how to tell a good original story. He's not going to sacrifice his creativity, but he also knows what the fans want, and he's giving it to them.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. I mean, he created the child, Baby Yoda, Grogu. I mean, and that's one of the most popular things in the world.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah. No, you could say no wrong about him. I mean, he is, honestly, he's the modern day George
dude,
Lucas. I
I was
mean,
just about to say that. I'm like, oh, you're gonna say that, and you're gonna steal my thunder. He is. He's
yeah,
really into technology. I mean, the way that the Mandalorian is filmed, they've created new ways. I mean, all that show is filmed in a dome.
yeah,
It's ridiculous, and like a lot. I mean, it looks pretty real. It's amazing to see. I mean, and now that technology is being used for Marvel, it's going to be used throughout Disney, and I'm pretty sure other studios are going to end up, getting that buying that technology, licensing it out to start making movies because it brings CGI to a new level. It's not just these green screens; it's they're filming these locations and they're rendering it like a video game.
yeah. Yeah, he does a good job. Like he makes like he again, I hate CGI, but he does a really good job with the effects. And like he made, you know, Lion King and Jungle Book, and made those seem really ultra realistic and really fun to watch. The technology was, just breathtaking. The guy's he's a legend.
He's a legend. But I'll also go on to more predictions because that's fun.
Yeah.
For people who know the Heir to the Empire trilogy, which was the first big books written after George Lucas's original trilogy. The one thing I think Disney made a mistake with as well is Kathleen Kennedy was kind of like, oh, we have no material like Marvel does. But that's not true. There's been hundreds and hundreds of books that have been written. Disney had deemed them non-canon, which I understand because they wanted to do their sequel trilogy. But I now think that storyline is going to be reworked a little bit, and that's going to become like the major overarching storyline that's happening on Disney Plus. And I think all these shows are going to kind of merged together to give you a big ultimate event, which I do believe will be a theatrical movie
Nice.
with
So you think they'll
Thrawn being the
all,
big bad. And I think instead of it being the role that Luke Skywalker kind of played, I think in Heir to the Empire will be replaced with Ahsoka, which
Mhm.
I mean, I'm totally cool with. I love that character. I was a huge fan of her in the Clone Wars, and I think Rosario Dawson is badass. Her episode in Mandalorian was amazing, and I think that's after. It's just so funny. I'm so excited for so many of the Disney Plus shows, and I'm really excited for hers.
do you think that she will cameo in the Kenobi series?
I've gone back and forth about this, and I'm going to go with yes. I And if not that, Hayden Christensen will cameo in her series, even if it's not. She's going to have an interaction with Darth Vader in live action, but she's also really good friends with Obi-Wan. So I feel like it's a good way of connecting that, where has Ahsoka been in all of these movies since she wasn't there? Like, weird fun fact is George Lucas, who, you know, Dave Filoni created Ahsoka, but obviously he worked on Clone Wars with George Lucas, but he wanted her to die at the end of the series. And Dave was like, no, 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 we're not going to kill her, but I have a perfect way, which he did to, kind of explain why she isn't in the show. And, she left the Jedi Order. So she actually doesn't consider herself a Jedi either.
Mhm.
She just, was one and, learned all the ways of the Force and whatnot. But I think having her show up in Obi-Wan will kind of give that little bit of connective tissue that the fans want that isn't necessarily has been as great in Star Wars as it is in Marvel, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, I think it's necessary, and I think they can use that to then fuel her own spin-off show and kind of who she is. Because, especially if you're weren't a fan of the animated series, if you're a live action only fan, which there's a lot of those people, it will help bring a lot of that to light, her relationship with both Anakin and Obi-Wan, and how that, where was she for all of that? I mean, you and I know where she was, looking for Ezra, correct?
Yeah,
Um,
so that's what's going to be interestingly enough for everyone who doesn't know. So then after the Clone Wars, there was a show that Dave Filoni created called Star Wars Rebels, which that's kind of leading up to the original Star Wars trilogy. And she's a prominent character in that. So that group of characters, I believe, is really gonna the way that show ends. It ends on a cliffhanger. There are heavy rumors, and there's been some evidence to support that the sequel animation show is coming out, but with all the success of the Mandalorian, they kind of scrapped that idea, and that what that show was going to be, Dave Filoni's now making in live action. So yeah, so she's looking for Ezra Bridger, who is a badass Jedi. He's actually one of my favorite characters. I cannot wait for him to be in live action. I think Les, you're really gonna like him. He's definitely a character who, teeters on the side of, you know, he is good, but he struggles with the dark side. And the way spoilers, but the way the Rebels series ends is he kind of sacrifices himself to save his entire crew, and he goes out, he hyperdrives into the outer rim with Thrawn, who's going to be the big bad. And I don't imagine him spending all this time with Thrawn not maybe becoming a little bit bad again, or he's going to become like the anti-hero type person that Star Wars doesn't really have, which I think is going to be really good. Because I make a prediction when Ahsoka eventually finds him, he's not going to be the person that they remember, which I think will be really cool.
yeah, yeah, that'll be good. I think that, and there's so much that they think about all how this just leads out to this own franchise in a way that similar to the MCU, you start branching out into all these stories. There's probably so many different shows and ultimately movies that could explore that world. The one thing that I can't wait for though, because I like that time period and all, and the dark ages and all that stuff, but like, man, I want the old Republic. I want to see the Knights of the Old Republic, and I'm
Yeah,
desperate for that.
I think we're
I'm
getting
desperate.
that. So that was my last big prediction is I think once we get through all of this stuff, I think what Disney's going to do, which is a bold choice, but once again, I said this earlier on, the thing that's so great about Star Wars is everyone loves the bad guys just as much as they love the good guys. But at the end of the day, the centralized story has normally been about the, light side. I think we're going to learn about the Sith. I think they're going to go hardcore into Sith shows, Sith movies. That's what the fans want. We've never really had it. I think that's going to go back to the, Old Republic. I think the Acolyte show is going to be our first dive into that. And from there, it's going to branch off. I think characters in that show are going to end up getting spinoffs. I think we're going to get Darth Revan. I think we're going to get Darth Bane. I think we're going to get some Plagueis. I think we're going to get a young Palpatine. I think they're going to go full on Sith. And I want that more actually than anything, even more than the Luke Skywalker.
Really?
Yeah, I think you can only, what everyone loves, the hero and, the good story, the good prevails over evil. But there's been a lot of that in Star Wars and they can't keep telling the same story over and over. Let's, hear about the bad guys. Let's see the origin of the Sith. Even though you ultimately know they don't win at the end, who cares? It's still going to be awesome.
In a way that only Disney can. Everybody's a good guy. You know what I mean? They're gonna justify the existence of the Sith. It's funny though, because what Disney does well with villains is, it humanizes them. They take away. It's funny because they went away from like when their origins of Disney, which is like, these evil people and they're just, in the cartoons, right? It was just like good and evil. And then in this new phase of Disney, like they did like Maleficent, I don't even know how to say it. They did all these movies. They try to like justify their existence, their evil, and you start to humanize it. And so, in my opinion, they're going to do all these shows. You're gonna understand the Sith a little bit more. And as we get older, it's like it's funny because Disney's like following our generation's growing up. I feel like, right? And so, and they definitely stroke the nostalgia quite often. But as you get older, you start to understand a little bit more. You know what I mean? You start to comprehend that everything isn't always good and evil, and there are motives and there are things. And I'm interested to see where they take that. But it'd be cool. I think Darth Revan would be an awesome character to bring to live action. That's one even I know quite a bit about. Not even being a ultra big fan of the video games and the all the hundreds of books and whatnot that have come out, but that one has made it to my ears multiple times. And another complicated character with some pretty not controversial, but oxymoron kind of storylines. So that'd be really interesting to bring to the fold. I don't know Darth Bane all that much though, but it'd be interesting to hear, to see that too. But yeah, if they do the Old Republic in that time period, I think there's so much that they can do. They can get away from this universe that they've explored now for 4 decades and or almost 5 decades, and do a different time period.
Speaking of the video games too, so the last big video game they had made was Jedi Fallen Order. I also think a big part of their future is they're really going to connect that to all forms of media. So I think the main character of the video game, his name was Cal Kestis. He was a Jedi who actually did survive Order 66. Was kind of in hiding, and it was
Execute Order 66.
and a great scene, another great moment from the villains. But I want to see that, not to go off what I was just saying, but I would like to see more of where Anakin is, which hopefully this can be explored in Obi-Wan, like him wrecking havoc during Order 66, not just a little bit that you see. But
are you saying that you want to see him kill younglings? Is that what you're saying?
Oh, we're gonna go into that topic. I just,
Can we reenact that?
Yeah, I want to see him, like, kind of like you said earlier, you really become like the villain that he is.
Killing younglings.
It'd be cool. It'd be cool.
Oh, we didn't get enough of it. What we always needed that we didn't get from the prequel, the one complaint I have on the prequel trilogy, other than Jar Jar Binks, is that we didn't get to see the struggle enough with Anakin. We fell in love with Anakin. We saw him as a kid. We saw him grow into a Jedi Knight, and we saw him evolve into a Jedi Master, and then just quickly become a Sith with very little struggle on screen.
Yeah.
And that torment, that struggle, that path is something I always wanted to see, and I wish they could redo, and maybe they'll do in the Obi-Wan series, which will be
I think we'll get a little bit of it, because like I said, it's explored in the Clone Wars series a little bit more, and Ahsoka definitely plays a part in him. Padme is obviously the ultimate end of him becoming, going over to the dark side, but Ahsoka doesn't help. That was his Padawan, and when she left him, that really started, I think, him down a path to the dark side. So maybe we'll see some of that as well in live action. But back to what I was saying with the Jedi Fallen Order, that character is really great. And the guy who plays him is Cameron Monaghan, and he's from Shameless. He played the Joker in the TV show Gotham. I mean, he's got some credits. I don't think they casted him to be in that video game for no reason. I think he could come over into live action as well. And I think that's going to be something they're going to do going forward, is really, interconnecting like a great story within a video game. And then those characters you've only seen the video game are going to come over into the series, which I think would be pretty cool.
That would be pretty cool.
So that's another prediction I have.
That's a good prediction. Yeah, I'm sure they're going to start pulling from all their source material and try to fix this universe that they've soiled a little bit. And
Disney Plus is just the perfect place to do it. I mean,
it is. They have grand plans. They've already thought 10 years out at this point now. So I'm sure these conversations are happening daily with nerds just like us, and they're putting it together. They're piecing it together. I have faith, especially if you listen to Jon Favreau and let him be at the helm, or play some role in it outside of The Mandalorian. There was a rumor that he's getting his own trilogy movies.
So the one thing that he's kind of said in the rumors out there is I think he will direct the movie that I was kind of saying will ultimately be the culmination of all of the Disney Plus series into the big, quote unquote, like Avengers event.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows? Maybe, I don't know if he'll get a whole trilogy. There's no way he's not directing a feature film for Lucasfilm. And I agree, you know, I've said it millions of times during this podcast already, but he's the future, but Dave Filoni, and they're definitely listening to him. Their stuff has hit the most. Like, it's universally beloved. No one really has much negative stuff to say about what they've created. I would love for him just to be in charge of Lucasfilm. I think both of them should be in charge of Lucasfilm, but here's why I don't think either of them ultimately will. Dave Filoni, at the end of the day, he's a creative. He is an animator. I don't really think he has the chops to run the company at a business level. I know you hired great people, but like, I think they should just listen to what he has to say creatively, and it should be executed. And I think for John, I mean, he's a mega talent, like we've been saying. I mean, he's not just Star Wars. I don't know if maybe the child in him is like, dude, Star Wars is the greatest thing ever. I can only work in Star Wars and I'd be happy. I just don't see him not wanting to do other stuff. And if you're completely running a company like that, there's no way he's directing other movies, in my opinion, unless, they come up with some groundbreaking structure / deal that allows him to do that.
Yeah, he's found a nice little niche in the Disney universe. I mean, he still plays Happy Hogan.
I mean, they
He's
love him.
confirmed. Yeah, he's confirmed again now.
Yep, he's confirmed. I mean, there was a point where he was gonna direct, and I think I thought this is a brilliant idea, and as a Disney fan, I really want it, but it's kind of got lost in development. Hell, I would assume kind of like a Night at the Museum type movie, but for the Magic Kingdom. That was like a dream project of his, where the park was going to come to life at night. So I mean, they love him. They give him. I mean, he's made them so much money. He's there to stay.
Yeah. You know what I'd like to see him do, but he won't. I'd like to see him direct like Young Avengers.
Me too. I would like him to come back to Marvel. I'm surprised he hasn't. I think he will.
Yeah. I think that's the one for him to do it, though. More so than any of the other properties.
That's fair. Yeah, I'd rather, take on a bigger, event film like that than give him a new character. It would be pretty cool to see him direct an episode of like Armor Wars, though.
Oh, I would love to see him do a multiple episode stint. I wonder if they're gonna stick with this formula now of one director like they did with Winter Soldier and Falcon.
It's funny. That's definitely, I think, something that Kevin Feige wants, where they don't care about that at Lucasfilm. And because in his mind, it's not really a television show. It's just one big movie. I think that's the difference. I like getting different perspectives. Like the amount of amazing directors that got to direct The Mandalorian, I mean, is awesome. And I think it brings different perspectives. But maybe it works a little bit better for that format. It can get a little stale if it's the same director over and over, in my opinion.
Yeah. But Armor Wars will be probably my favorite Disney Plus series. We'll see.
I feel like the Marvel show that I'm gonna like the best that's been announced so far is Moon Knight. I'm pretty pumped for that. Not that I'm very excited for Armor Wars as well.
We shall see. Speaking of, now that we've gotten into the MCU a little bit, for those of you that have not YouTubed the trailer for Phase 4 of the MCU, Google it, watch it, get enchanted. They took Universal's idea and they ran with it, and
made it better.
Really cool. No, it's not better, because can you get better than Dom Toretto voiceover with a Dodge Challenger driving through the desert? And we gotta get back to the movies.
Well, the thing I loved about the Marvel's version of that, though, was like, that was the beginning of the trailer, and then they kind of were like, this is why going to the movies is going to be awesome. And they gave you not one, not two, not three, not four, not five. I mean, the list goes on of reasons why. And I
They
thought
gave you
that was
4 years worth of stuff.
and that was a stance by Marvel and Disney being like, these movies are going to the movie theaters.
Yeah.
The fact that they put those, I know can always change, but I thought it was pretty badass of them to put those dates out there, get the fans excited and know that these are coming and we're hitting for these dates.
Yeah. Very exciting. You said this might be the most exciting phase of MCU. There's certain things that I'm really excited about, but other things I'm like a little bit, I feel a little bit stale, and I'm waiting for something else. I don't know what I'm waiting for, but I need one more thing. The thing that I got really excited about was the title, Wakanda Forever for Black Panther 2. Just definitely the right path there, and it tells you what they're going to try to do with that story, which gets me pumped. Eternals looks pretty cool. I just wish Angelina Jolie was not in it. Obviously we've seen the trailer for Shang-Chi, but I don't know. There's nothing like really like I can't wait to go to the movies. If it's definitely ain't Love and Thunder. If it's anything like Thor Ragnarok, which is the worst movie in the history of movies.
I think when you see the real trailer for Eternals, you're going to be pretty pumped.
Well, I'm pumped for Eternal. I said that. I just wish Angelina Jolie wasn't in it.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I'm very indifferent with her. I'm not like a fan, but I don't care.
You see what she did to Brad? She ruined his life.
I think Brad's doing just fine.
I mean, he doesn't get to see his kids, man.
He doesn't?
Not much.
Yeah, well, that sucks.
Well, his kids hate him, so maybe he's the scumbag. I don't know, but I don't know.
But speaking of that slate, though, some juicy rumors. I mean, a lot of people were surprised that they changed the Captain Marvel 2 title to the Marvels. And I think it's all BS, but a lot of people are like, there's been rumors that like they don't believe in Brie Larson. People hate Brie Larson. They think she's horrible. That she can't be like, they basically set her up to be the new leader. That she can't carry that, and she just wasn't, the fit.
Who's
and
saying that?
The internet, all the angry people who
Are
like
they? I haven't seen that.
Yeah, she's not very well liked. I completely disagree. I love Brie Larson, and I think I liked her as Captain Marvel, but it is interesting. Maybe it was a great way to just change the title. It works with the creative. I actually like the title, but is it also kind of a way to like, market the movie a little differently?
Yeah.
It's interesting, but you haven't really heard of that. So,
well, I thought the movie was very bad. I didn't think she was very bad. I just thought that the film, I fell asleep in the movie theater watching Captain Marvel. I fell asleep for probably the entire third act, and then went and saw it again because I thought, okay, it's Marvel, you're gonna like it. You were just really tired, you worked hard that week, whatever, and I fell asleep again.
It's funny. That's hilarious. That movie, I liked the movie. It was fine. It was one of the movies I thought was pretty predictable.
Yeah, I didn't like it. But I like her, and I think she's a leading lady, and if people are gonna not see that, they're idiots, because I think she's a really great actress, and I think she handled the character very well, and I thought she was cool in the Avengers too.
I mean, I completely agree with you. So I'm on that stance. It's just
Yeah.
There are many people who don't agree with us, and that was making the rounds on the internet a little bit, kind of being like interesting that they changed the title to that.
Uh, on that vein, though, in terms of strong female characters and maybe taking leadership roles in future MCU films, pretty stoked on the Hawkeye show and seeing Haley Steinfeld. If I said that right.
Yeah.
Uh, I
She's
think. Go ahead.
there you go.
No, I was gonna say I think she's gonna play a prominent role in Young Avengers.
She totally is, and she's an incredible actress, and she was a great pick. She's a movie star, and it's good that I think Marvel locked her up.
Yeah, and I think seeing Jeremy Renner play a mentor and get more screen time as Hawkeye. He has been very vocal in the past about a early treatment of the Hawkeye character. I think they remedied that in the later movies and gave him his due, which is funny because usually when you badmouth Disney, you end up dead. It's like, saying something bad about Hillary Clinton. But somehow he made it and unscathed, and now he has his time, so he better shine. I think he's a star as well, and I think he hasn't been in a lot. He was like, they were setting him up to be Hollywood's next big leading man. He was in the Bourne series. He had his own spinoff. He was in Mission Impossible. And he's
Yeah,
in the
he just
Avengers.
never panned out for him.
Right. But it's weird because I think he's great and he's got a lot of charm, and I think he is a movie star. So I'd like to see what he does with the character as a mentor. And I think he can bring that kind of
I
let's
think
call it heart.
something that's going to be really interesting in the show, and this is part of his character in the comic books at times. I think he's going to be deaf in the series.
Deaf.
Yeah, which will be really interesting, and I think contribute to his acting chops. I think he's someone who could, make that believable.
Yeah. You think right away?
I think they're going to show him become deaf in the show.
Yeah.
I don't think it'll be right away, but that was a popular storyline. And I just think if that goes with the Disney way of representation, I know he's not actually deaf in real life, but it'll definitely, even though actually one of the superheroes in the Eternals is deaf, and she's deaf in real life. So that's going to be, she's in The Walking Dead and she plays a good role in that. I'm excited to see her in the Eternals.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty excited for most of that cast, except Angelina Jolie. But I think Richard Madden, aka James Bond. We're gonna keep making that prediction until it comes true. I'm putting that into the universe. I know you think it's the Bridgerton actor. I get it.
No. I agree with you. I prefer it to be Richard Madden.
Yeah. But yeah. So, and then was there any other exciting news this week?
I feel like that was the biggie.
Yeah, I think that was it. That was the main thing this week. But yeah, lots coming in the pipeline. A lot of things I think will start spilling. My guess is they showed some footage of the Eternals, so we're seeing a full trailer soon. You think it's going to be with the Black Widow release?
I do. I think, with today being May the 4th, we're going to get a lot of Star Wars news. They're going to let that ride high a little bit, especially since we just got this Marvel sizzle, and then they'll go right back into Marvel because we're going to get Loki's coming, and The Bad Batch is actually running for 16 episodes, so that's going to be one of their longest original series. That's going to go into August. So there's going to be a lot of Marvel stuff going in between there.
You mean I have to watch a cartoon for that long, bro?
I mean, you just gotta stop thinking of it being a cartoon, Matt.
Oh man, it's good because Charlie here is getting his fellow nerd into the extended Star Wars universe, and I'm giving it a shot. You know, call me a casual. I'm gonna go into hyperspeed right into animation land and see what all.
I think you're gonna enjoy it. I mean, it's overwhelming because it's a lot. I don't expect. You're a very busy guy. I don't expect you to be able to, watch all of it, but I know I sent you a list that you could ship at of like a few Clone War episodes here and there. Because the way that show's actually designed is a lot of them are story arcs. So it's like, it could go from like 1 to 4 episodes. It's like a contained story. And I just think especially for someone who didn't necessarily love The Mandalorian and then got into it, you'll appreciate it better, even if you just watch the Mandalorian episodes. And it's a great show for Obi-Wan because actually, it's funny. I wanted to get into this before and we kind of got off, but he has a love interest in that show. And speaking of the Jedi, it's interesting how, he really believed in the Jedi code no matter what. And that was for him and Anakin being very similar, and they were, best friends, where Anakin that's where he was more of the hot-headed and was kind of like, yeah, I'm doing what I want to do. And, I'm getting with this chick. So that's something I really liked about the show. It really you learn about the characters you've loved that you just don't get to see in the movie theaters. And it has George Lucas's stamp of approval because he came up with it as well. That's another reason that the Clone Wars is awesome. It's George Lucas.
You tell me something, Charlie. Would you go to the dark side for Natalie Portman?
Yeah. I honestly think I want, it's funny. I feel like that you're laughing hardcore. That's the one thing I really like about Anakin's character, though, is kind of like, it's interesting. Like he beat it to his own drum, and like he could have definitely, I wanted them to dive more into that being okay in the sequel trilogy, and they didn't. I just think they didn't, they just wanted to, because Rey was the main character. It was really more about female empowerment and whatnot. But I feel like that is something that the new Jedi Order, like I wish they showed Luke having a love interest. I know he did in Legends, but I know George Lucas wasn't necessarily a fan of the character Mara Jade, who he was with. But I would have liked to have seen that. And then, he's the ultimate hero and showed a way that it was okay to, love.
Yeah. Well, love is a dangerous thing, as one could see. It created the greatest evil ever known in Star Wars land.
Before we go, though, we wrap up this special May the 4th episode. I know this is a hard, long-winded question, and for me it changes all the time, but do you think you give me a ranking of your Star Wars movies from top to bottom?
Sure, I'll start with bottom. Well, actually, this is harder than I
It's
thought.
hard. It's hard.
All right, so Rise of Skywalker.
Is the worst Star Wars movie ever made.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So Rise of Skywalker. Force Awakens. Oh man, this gets rough now.
Why don't we, let's make it easier, because I'll do the same because mine changed all the time. Let's just rank them in trilogies, like within the original trilogy, the sequel trilogy, which you liked the best within
Okay.
those.
Yeah. Revenge of the Sith. Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones. And best to worst.
Yep.
Um,
I'll go with mine then, so we can go back and forth because I'm curious. They may be the same because for me that's exactly the same. Right? Revenge of the Sith, Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones.
yeah, that's pretty definitive. I mean,
Yeah.
Darth Maul, badass. Qui-Gon Jinn, badass. Seeing that world for the first time was awesome, but it doesn't beat Revenge of the Sith. That was just a great flick. But yeah, so then I guess the A New Hope. So that's not what I'm ranking. So number one in the original trilogy, episodes 4 through 6, is Empire. Return of the Jedi, A New Hope.
Okay, I'm exactly the same. Oh, I think we'll be different here though.
Yeah, here, Force Awakens, Last Jedi, in order.
Yeah, I go back and forth. It's funny. A few years ago, I would have told you The Last Jedi was really high up in my list of all Star Wars movies. And as times go by, I like that movie less and less. I actually think it is the worst of the the sequel trilogy. So I'll go with Force Awakens, Rise of Skywalker, and then The Last Jedi.
Yeah, and the only reason I ranked it the way I did, Force Awakens just had enough nostalgia to make it okay. But I hate the whole sequel trilogy as that it even exists. And but yeah, so but
And then
that's
I'm assuming you like
basically
Rogue One better than Solo, or do you like Solo better than Rogue One?
Rogue One was perfection, man. Rogue
Yeah,
One is one of the best Star Wars movies made.
agreed. That is the best movie that has come out of the Disney era. Even though I think Mandalorian is the best Star Wars that's come out of it.
Like if I were ranking all Star Wars movies, including outside the Skywalker saga, for Rogue One would be top 3.
Which is interesting coming from someone who said earlier on that you're all about the Jedi. That has
I
absolutely
know,
nothing to do with it.
I know it's well,
Well, it does actually a little bit.
it
With the
does, and
Force.
yeah, and all you needed was 5 minutes of Darth Vader to make me sold. I just need a little bit of lightsabers, man. That's why I liked Mandalorian season 2. There were lightsabers. All right, you had Ahsoka in her episode, she's kicking ass, and then you had Luke Skywalker with probably the best lightsaber scene outside of Duel of Fates, just taking people down. Um, uh, that's why I liked Mandalorian season 2. So again, I don't ask for much. All right, just a little bit. So, but yeah, I would put Rogue One. Rogue One was just the acting was really good. They made A New Hope better.
It did. Now, did you mind the Tarkin and the Princess Leia CGI in that movie?
No, I didn't. I actually thought it was really good. I thought it was better than the Luke Skywalker one in Mandalorian.
Yeah, it's funny. I think that it sucks, but I think the Luke Skywalker didn't look better because it was a what's the word I'm looking for? A disservice because of COVID, in my opinion. Just like the resources and the technology and whatnot, maybe they had in the editing room.
I personally think that they dropped the ball and they had the most incredible moment to take Sebastian Stan from one studio, move him to the next, and have him freaking act out the 5-minute scene.
Yeah, see, I'm happy with the way they did it, even though I want Sebastian to take over. I think it's like that was the ultimate fan service where you gave people like the last time they're probably ever gonna see an incarnation of Mark Hamill, even though that was just his face and his like voice being Luke Skywalker. Now they said they did it. You got to see it, and now you can move on. Like I feel like if you saw it, you would have known it was Luke Skywalker, but some people could have been like, wait, is that Luke Skywalker? Or is it just a dude who's going around with a green lightsaber? In my opinion. I wouldn't be that person, but that show is so mainstream. I feel like some people would not have known it was Luke Skywalker.
Fair. Fair. But yeah, shoot, man. What's your number one? Is Empire your number one?
Empire Strikes Back is the number one Star Wars, I think. And I think it is.
Yeah, it is. I mean, nothing comes close, to be honest.
I mean,
it's its own league.
I mean, the original trilogy for me is the best. Then I get Revenge of the Sith comes in for fourth for me. I mean, I could kind of do my list in order. I just struggle between where I put some of the sequels that I like versus, like an Attack of the Clones. Like, I think Attack of the Clones is probably the worst Star Wars movie overall.
Yeah.
Even though I love the prequels and as a trilogy, in its entirety, I prefer that over the sequel trilogy, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I would put Attack of the Clones right behind the entire sequel trilogy. So they're all the worst. And then there's Attack of the Clones. And then
well, that's fair. You mean you hate the sequel trilogy, so they automatically are the bottom.
They're automatically in the ranking I gave on the bottom. Then it's Attack of the Clones.
Can it be redeemed for you if through Disney Plus shows, if they flesh out characters and they kind of like, I don't want to say retcon, but make up for some of the mistakes they may have made and make things make more sense?
No.
How come?
I hate Kylo Ren.
Yeah, you would hate him. He's like one of the parts of the sequel trilogy that is basically universally loved.
I think he is.
Do you like Adam Driver as an actor?
No.
Okay, well that says it all.
I like him as a person. He's a military guy, and
I mean, I think he's one of the greatest working actors right now.
Yeah,
so.
I think he is the perfect representation of what modern day society would look up to, for sure. Cool.
Okay.
I mean, when you get mad and you throw a temper tantrum and slam your lightsaber against the wall, that's what modern day people would do when they're mad. So I understand why he's a modern day hero. I go for guys that like Han Solo that just shoot first.
Well, he killed Han Solo, his own father. I mean, come on, man. That's pretty
exactly.
Badass.
Why do you think I hate him so much? That's a badass. He killed the best character. No, that's case in point. Case in point.
It's funny. He was like super worried about like, oh my God. Like he doesn't watch any of the stuff he's in, like ever, but he was kind of like forced to watch Star Wars. And he was just like, I actually was just reading this. I had read it before, but it had come back to light that, he was so terrified for people to see him kill Han Solo that he thought people would hate him.
I mean, they do. I can't stand them, and I'll never watch them in a movie again. And you just got to the root cause of it. No, I also thought he was. Honestly, it was like watching. To me, Kylo Ren as a character was like watching the brother in Wedding Crashers. the emo brother in Wedding Crasher.
Yeah.
Death, you are my bitch lover. Be a villain.
Yeah, I completely disagree with you, but you're totally entitled to your opinion. So I mean, I know we kind of talked about this before. You would say your favorite character of the sequel trilogy is Poe.
Um, no, my favorite character in the sequel trilogy is Han Solo.
I meant the new characters.
Okay. Um, of the new,
Like you can't include like Princess Leia, like or General Leia, Luke,
okay,
or Han.
or Palpatine.
Yeah.
Um, I like Ray.
Oh,
I
you are a
like
Ray fan.
Ray. I was a Ray fan. I wasn't a fan of what they did with Ray. They overdid it. But in Force Awakens, I was crushing for sure. And then I think they just took it a little bit too far. But
Yeah, I don't like where they brought her. She definitely should have been. I was when I was really obsessed with The Last Jedi, I kind of liked that she was a nobody.
yeah,
But I ultimately, as any fan of this type of stuff is, you want everything to be connected. They missed the boat by not making her. I think there was three better decisions. One, she's Luke Skywalker's kid. He has celebrates after, bringing everyone back together after Endor. He finds some, rebel lady, and they have a child. I think it could have been. I would have liked if she was Kylo Ren's sister. Or I liked the Obi-Wan Kenobi connection, which would have been a really good throwback to him having a love interest in the Clone Wars.
yeah. I was thinking that for the longest time. And then it could have been even more, fuel for the dynamic between Obi-Wan and Anakin, just like,
Yeah.
one went dark, one stayed light and was able to conquer a love story without going full
It's funny. There's a
evil
rumor
Sith.
going around though that in whether it's in a Disney Plus show, I'm assuming they'll show it in a show, but that part of Rey is actually from Luke Skywalker. That Palpatine made his clones from the hand. Yep.
Yeah, I saw that.
Which I know some people are up in arms about, but that would at least make the whole Rey Skywalker thing that people hate at the end at least make a little more sense. But did you like that at the end, or you hated that?
Oh, that was the worst fucking thing. I'm sorry. The worst effing thing. Bleep that out. Yeah. No, I hate this sequel trilogy. So
All right, we got to end this on a positive note. So, besides, we got to celebrate Star Wars here.
yeah.
Besides because I know we've said until we've, or blue in the face that our most anticipated show is Obi-Wan. But besides that, what are you most looking forward to?
Um,
There's actually a show we haven't talked about once during this podcast, which I can't believe that I'm pretty pumped about.
what's that?
The Book of Boba Fett.
Oh, yeah. I'm not as excited about that as you are. I'd say I'm outside of the Obi-Wan show of the announced or the potentials.
Of the announced that we know is coming. Are you really not into any of them? Which is fair, which is fine.
Next season, no, I can't say this anymore. It would have been the next season of Mandalorian,
That's
but
happening.
Yeah, I know, but I can't say that I'm excited anymore.
Got you. Okay. Yeah, I don't want to get into that. Uh,
So yeah, well, yeah, we got to be on a positive note. Well, I'm excited at the prospect of further storytelling with Ahsoka.
okay.
Like really excited. And I think that casting was perfection. It's fan service at its finest, and it paid off in dividends. And I think she's so badass, and I think that she should have content after content after content. I want to see more and more and more of her. So
Yeah, she's definitely the star, and I'm happy that she's now mainstream because
yeah.
the Star Wars fans like me have known her forever, but a lot
And,
of people just got introduced to her for the first time, and like she's a badass character, and I'm really pumped for her.
and it's about time for Rosario to have a resurgence. She's been away for a little bit.
I agree,
She's a
and
great
she
actress.
she embodies the character and her physicality, and like her doing in that one episode, the lightsaber scenes are just that's the lightsaber action you want, which we didn't. I look back like we didn't get that in the sequel trilogy, which
You know
is
why?
upsetting because
You know
J.J.
why?
Abrams. Why?
Well, I was just gonna say, Ahsoka, there's a big, it all comes down to who trained you. You know what I mean? And there was the old school lightsaber duels with the flipping around the back and then flipping it 1,000 times before you clash. um, I'll never forget in Revenge of the Sith when they're like, and then like I don't know what they were doing, but the versus like the New Hope and Beyond, where it was just like, and that's how Luke Skywalker fought, and that's how he taught his young Padawans how to fight. They didn't twirl lightsabers, so
No.
it's all about who your master was, man. Not everybody's got those skills. It is well known in the Star Wars canon that Anakin Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi are the most masterful with wielding one lightsaber, and Ahsoka learned from the best.
She did. All right. Well, we can end it on that. We're excited for Ahsoka, which everyone should be excited for. It's going to be a really exciting character. I can't wait to see more.
All right. So with that, we're gonna come back next week with a review of Bad Batch.
Yeah. So another episode will be airing on Friday, so we can review 2 episodes. That's what we'll be doing next week. And if Matt doesn't get into it, it's totally fine. The people can tell us what they want. I can do it by myself, or we can, just glance over
I
Bad
am a
Batch.
team player. But we are also going to do a episode around the forgotten ones, forgotten characters, forgotten movies, installments in the superhero universe that we have admiration for and respect for. Charlie and I had some interesting conversations over the weekend about certain installments in both Marvel and DC that either did happen and were underappreciated or never came to fruition, but we would have been excited to watch. And I think we want to do a whole episode on that. There's a lot of cool stuff that if you do some research, you find out the behind the scenes fun for all that stuff. So that'll be coming in the pipeline in the upcoming weeks. But in the meantime, we're going to sign off here on the May the 4th. And may the 4th be with you, Charlie, always.
And also with you, Matthew. Happy May the 4th, everyone.
Take it easy.
Later.